I have completely forgotten where we left off on this truck. Wiring is where I think we're at. We needed to put in an OBD2 Diagnostic Port, and I ordered one up, and here it is. I could have gone to a junkyard and cut one out, but these really aren't that expensive on Amazon. So anyway, here is where the computer is mounted. We need to run a wire for our fan relay. We need to connect our serial wire here, and we also need to run a wire for our check engine light. Now check this out. It just so happens there's this crazy looking light already mounted in here, so we're going to test that, see if it works, and we'll just use that for our check engine light. I think that'll be kind of cool. I think we could probably cheat and just hook up a jump box. Oh, look at that. Light works great. So when working with the Vortec truck engines, the early stuff, the like 99 through 07 or whatever, you've got two different types of harnesses. The one for the 512 computer, which is what this is, and then the one for the 1 meg computer. You can tell the difference on the wiring harnesses. Both have a blue connector, and then one type of harness has a red, the other type of harness has a green. But the check engine light on both the red and green is going to be plugged into number 46. And you can see numbers, and you notice 46 is missing. They are in order: 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, and then where there's nothing, that's 46. 46 appears to be a black wire with a white tracer. And you should note that this is actually a ground wire. So when the check engine light comes on, the computer is sending a ground to this wire. You got to make sure that the other side of the check engine light is actually wired to switched power. This will actually be the ground for the light. So when there is a malfunction, the computer turns this into a ground and the light lights up. I could cut this right here and splice this to another wire, but I'm going to spend a few moments to see if I can find the end of it in this mess over here. I don't think I'm going to find it though, but let me try for a few minutes, and yeah, I actually did find it. It goes into this connector right here, and it is actually a dark brown and white wire, not a black and white. It's dark brown and white. Unfortunately, I was missing this connector, but I have another LS sitting around that's got its factory harness, and lo and behold, it had the other end on here. So I don't need to hack this off. I'm going to go ahead and connect it here, and here's the dark brown and white. Not only is the check engine light in here, but you've also got the serial line for the OBD2 connector, which is good because we need to install one of those as well. But we're going to shift gears for a second and do a little bit of work on the fan. We're going to add a pin to the blue connector here. We've got to add the fan relay wire. The Vortec trucks have actual cooling fans. The cooling fan's been removed, and we've got an electric cooling fan. The ECM has been set to use an electric cooling fan, but there's no wire for it in here, so we're going to add that. This is the ground for the relay. The ECM tells the fan to turn on. It completes the ground circuit, so I'm just using a black wire. Here's our little pin. We're just going to put this in here like so. Get our crimper. That's the wire. Make sure you crimp them all. We've got the pin on the wire. Now we just need to take this apart, put the wire in. We're pushing on the white clip here and pull up on the blue cover at the same time. You see it's lifted up now. We're going to do the same on the other end. We're just going to push in here. All right, it's off. We want to add a pin to number 42 right here. So we're going to come in right here, and we're just going to go through the back. Nice clean shot at it. And just push her right on through. All right. And we are in. See, here is our new pin right here. Put our cover back on. Now we have the ground trigger wire for our electric fan relay. That was also the only wire I needed to add, so we can go ahead and hook the computer back up. This nut is a 7. Don't try and force these connectors on. Just put it on, press it down, and then screw it the rest of the way in. This is a pretty standard relay that I'm using for the electric fan. It does have a fuse on it here for the hot wire for the fan. So that'll be nice. It didn't come with a fuse. I threw a 20 amp in there. That may or may not be enough. Probably should be 30, but I'm going to go ahead and just screw this down on this plate that's over here. Really, I guess I should have taken that off, huh? If you look on here, you'll see there's some numbers. Wow, I wish I could read those. Well, at any rate, this one is our power to the fan. The ground for the fan just grounds to the vehicle. These two, one of these could be switched power. The other one is power all the time. Or they could both just be power all the time. They're both going to be power all the time. The computer sends the ground signal to here, which completes the circuit in the relay, sending juice over to the fan. So that's what we're going with. So these two are going to get power all the time, probably from this stud right here. And this is going to go over to our fan. And this wire from our ECM will be hooked to the ground. Run the blue and white wire underneath the fuse box and back over to here and wired it to our hot side of the fuse box. The wire coming off the ECM is right here, but before I connect it, I wanted to test out the electric fan. The electric fan wire, we've got our hot wire coming off the relay is right here, and then our actual ground is here. But we're just going to go ahead and take the relay ground and hit it to ground right here. And there's our fan. So now all we need to do is wire this up. Then when the engine gets to 195 degrees, the ECM will send a ground signal down this wire, which will complete the circuit in the relay, turn our fan on until we get back down to 185 degrees, and then it'll turn itself off. Our trigger wire for the relay is completely done. And so now we're ready to move on to this. We've got the check engine light, the OBD2 connector, and then somewhere we also have a brake switch that we need to put on here. A little bit of a spoiler alert. It looks like it's about to rain. I need to get these doors out of the back of my truck. Now, these are 65 C-10 doors that have all of their window guts in them, which mine doesn't really have. So the next video I'll be making will be all about the guts of these doors. So be sure to subscribe and hit notified so you get notified about that video. Let me put the camera down, get those doors out, and then we'll get right back to the wiring. I went ahead and made a little bit of a harness. You can see you can see what the harness looks like currently. The previous owner did all of this. I'm sure all that blue tape means something to him. It means nothing to me. Once I'm done doing all the rewiring, I will rip all that tape off there and wrap it up, kind of like I have done with this. This will get wrapped into that harness as well, but this is the wires that we are running right now. The color wires that I've run kind of match what we're using from this connector, just to make things easy. We're actually using these three off of here. So this is just a temporary hot wire to use for the diagnostic port until I run the entire fuse panel for the truck. This is all, this fuse panel is all related to the engine. The other fuse panel will be for, you know, headlights, wipers, turn signals, all that good stuff, radio. And when we put that wiring harness in, I'll pull this back and wire it directly into that. Now I'm going to splice these three wires onto our connector here. To make things easy for me, I have printed out all of the pinouts. This all came from lt1swap.com. You can just go there and find all the printouts. I was just looking them up on my phone, but I decided that printing out a bunch of the pinouts for stuff I work on pretty often would be easier. I really don't have internet down here in the shop, so I'm using these solderless connectors. What you do is you take the connector, put it on your wire like this. So you've got it on your wire. We're doing brown to brown. I'm just gonna wrap our wire kind of like that. There's a little metal piece in here. You just get that over what you normally would be soldering. All three are ready for the heat gun. You can see the shrink tube just shrinking. And the metal piece will as well. Now you just make sure everything is done on both sides. And just like that, we are done with these connectors. You can see what that looks like. Okay, now we can plug this in and then wire up the other ends on the inside. Here's the mess on the inside. Now let's see here. Our brown malfunction indicator light. The purple is gonna go, purple's gonna go on our brake switch, so we'll just put that there. And then our green is for our OBD2 connector, which I think I'm just gonna kind of mount it up here. And this red is the red is our power for the OBD2 connector. Here's a look at our diagnostic port. It's all wired up and ready to use. Yeah, I know these wires back here still mess, but that's gonna get taken care of when we mount the new fuse panel, and it's gonna be back here-ish. All right, let me spool some of this off and then just go ahead and cut this out of here. This is gonna be for our TCC brake connector. So we're just gonna cut this, and then we will run this ground wire for the malfunction indicator light, or check engine light. Then we got to figure out a hot wire that'll be hot when the ignition is on, which means we'll probably have to connect it to this switch here, which isn't doing anything at the moment, but this is what turns on the fuel pump, computer, blah, 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 blah. Recap the wiring on this. Your number 2 pin is your OBD2 connector right here. And then 4 and 5 are ground wires. This particular connector came with something here in port 9, but that's not needed. And then finally this one here, 16, that's your power wire. And that needs to be powered all the time. Serial from the computer, ground and ground, and hot all the time. You know, none of this stuff is hooked up. So I run our keyed hot wire off of this switch right here. Now this steering column is going to get replaced in a later video with a square body column, and then it'll actually have a key here, and this switch will go away. But for now, I've hooked up our power to here for our check engine light. I guess I need to hook the battery up and see if it works. The other wire that we ran was for the brake switch, and the brake switch is another thing that'll get installed with the wiring harness and the steering column. So we ran the wire because we were there. It just made sense to run it, but we're not going to do anything with it right now. So let's hook up the battery and see if all this mess works. Okay, so our battery's hooked up. I've got a little handheld scanner here. Plug this in. Now it should just fire up even though we're not running. Yeah, there it is, great. Let's hit the switch here. And our check engine light is on, which is to be expected. Now let's see if we can talk to the computer. Do some diagnostics. Let's see if it will auto ID, enter. Oh, look at that. It's a 2002 GMC Yukon 1500. Oh, yes, that's correct. I was wondering what this computer came out of. I knew it was a 2002. For some reason, I thought it was a Tahoe. No codes found. Well, no check engine light, so that's working properly. One of the reasons I really wanted the OBD port in here was so I could figure out why it's misfiring. Hopefully we get some information now. We got a little bit of wiring done that really needed to get done. Now I know I have a PO300 error, which is random misfires. Duh. Anyways, Like, subscribe, comment. I'll see you guys down the road, and hopefully we'll be putting some windows in this thing, and then the full wiring harness for the brake lights and turn signals and all that good stuff. See you guys.